A couple of NewsNation political contributors and talk this through a bit. Dr. Lauren Wright is a scholar at Princeton University. We're also joined by Democratic strategist Chris Hahn. Lauren, you first on this idea about FEMA. It's, I was talking to Brian Enton about it from North Carolina at the top of the show today. Right. The Trump's idea, such as it is, I think, is to say, all right, same money, maybe different way of going about the distribution of it. What do you say about it?
Well, he probably has a lot of support for at least changing the agency. But what happens with most presidents is they come in and they say, we have federalism and we don't need such a bloated, inefficient agency, which it absolutely is. About 20% of the disaster relief it distributes goes to paperwork and administration, and that's not good. But what presidents end up doing is they end up contributing to some of the bloat and inefficiency because it is the main artery we have, and its main responsibility is to get the federal aid to disaster areas and states. That comes with trade-offs, like all policies. States, for instance, spend less on disaster preparedness because they just assume the federal funds are going to be there from FEMA. So he's definitely right that changes need to be made. But if I had to guess, I would say the agency stays in place, albeit some major changes and shakeup.
Before I get your thoughts on it, Chris, let me play a clip from the president explaining, kind of his thinking on this. This was earlier today. Watch.
We're looking at the whole concept of FEMA. I like, frankly, the concept when North Carolina gets hit, the governor takes care of it. When Florida gets hit, the governor takes care of it, meaning the state takes care of it. To have a group of people come in from an area that don't even know where they're going in order to solve immediately a problem is something that never worked for me.
And he went on to say either before or after that, Chris, you'd still have the money, but it would flow through us, he said, meaning it would flow through his government or through the Congress, presumably, but then the states would have more control. What do you think of all this?
Look, I agree with Lauren. There's a lot that can be changed at FEMA. But look, Congress created FEMA because it wanted to have some accountability for the money that they were sending to states in disasters. Right? So it's kind of hard to kind of just do away with that because you're going to still want that accountability, and something will have to replace that. But that said, look, there's a lot. Look, I ran a large county. I've dealt with FEMA in my life. There's a lot that can be changed. For example, FEMA, in many cases, wants states and localities to build back almost exactly what they had in that was torn down before the event. And I think that might not work anymore, especially given the rapid pace of climate change. You might want to build to a different standard or even build in a different location to make people whole and make communities whole after these storm events. So, look, if Donald Trump comes in and has some good ideas for FEMA and listens to state and local government about how they might make it a little bit more efficient, that's great. And good luck to him on that.
Well, it's interesting because it is part of kind of the debate we've been having forever, and I guess it's no surprise that Trump wants to have it on this issue, and he'll have it on others. It's how big should government be, small versus large government, Republicans versus Democrats. From the New York Times, Trump's saying that states should manage disasters, and former FEMA leaders agree. I put that up, though, to look at the quote at the bottom. Project 2025, the blueprint for a Republican administration produced by Heritage, calls for flipping the financial burden of response to small disasters so that 75% is carried by the states and the rest by the federal government. So I've heard some Democrats, and Chris, you popped up and said, yeah, they've said, well, this is what he's doing. It's Project 2025. But Lauren, I don't know if it matters. It still might be something that a Republican president would want to do, make government smaller. Your view, and then Chris.
Oh, he absolutely wants to make it smaller, and this is probably one of the least controversial ideas in Project 2025. There's a lot of reasons to think states should take more responsibility for dealing with their own disasters and helping people that live there. The problem is, of course, when you see the footage, like we've seen in California, and NewsNation's coverage has been really moving about the wildfires there. People want FEMA. They want someone. They're happy the president's coming. Yeah. They don't care about politics. They just want the help, and they're happy to have the help from the federal government. These budgeting issues and the politics are important, but it sort of obscures the day-to-day realities of people on the ground, and They definitely want the government's help.
Yeah, and while some people, Brian speaks to North Carolina, are saying we're not getting the help we need, and they're blaming FEMA. The couple we had on from Altadena, California, the guy says, well, FEMA's been great, So
Yeah.
it depends on sometimes when, a response, when a disaster hits, the response actually is appreciated by the people. So it depends on the situation.
Yeah.
Chris, what were you going to say there about Project 2025, if anything?
Well, look, I mean, we could beat it to death, but yeah, clearly Project 2025 is still alive and well, and whether Trump has read it or not, he's got a lot of people who wrote it in his administration, and I'm sure you're going to see things like this pop up from time to time. But as for FEMA, look, there are two FEMAs, right? There's the FEMA that comes during the disaster, and they are fantastic. They are there to help. They are not asking you to fill out forms. They're, what do you need? What can we do for you right now? And then there's the FEMA in the rebuild, right,
That's
where
right.
most of the money is spent, and that is a
right.
paperwork titan, right? It is a bunch of accountants and actuaries and lawyers telling you what you can or cannot rebuild. So, that's the part that needs to be reformed. What the people in California are dealing with right now is that part of FEMA that really are, salt of the earth Americans that'll go to the disaster and help those people in need at that moment. And thank God for them. And we need more of that kind of action in the aftermath of these events, where they are helping the states, localities, and individuals rebuild their lives. And look, one of the things that makes us Americans is we come together in this disaster and we help people wherever they are in this country. So to suggest that the states are going to do this on their own, really belies the financing of states. Federal government can run a debt in ways that states can't. And that's the difference here. That's why the money is going to have to always be federal.
Yeah, I mean, again, you'd have to explain it that he was saying that in so many ways, like the money would still come through the federal government, but the distribution would come more at the state and local level. I am not 100% sure, but that's what I thought the president was kind of articulating today. One more thing, one political question before we let you guys go, because that's what you guys do. Trump and Newsom today. So the president will land at LAX. We'll put it up here, the headline that Trump has snubbed Newsom, so to speak, ahead of this visit, and because the governor said yesterday he had yet to hear from the president about his planned wildfire tour, but he planned to show up anyway at the airport for a customary greeting. Newsom and Trump have not spoken since the latter left office in 2020, and Trump has not returned the governor's recent calls. You expect anything dramatic today, Lauren, in terms of politics?
No, Newsom's a pretty smooth political operator. I've no love for him. I used to work in California politics. He's been a disaster for the state, in my opinion. Chris can comment on that. But I expect them both to come together and try to work on this, because that would benefit both of them as politicians. Thoughts
on this, Chris? We're going to switch video to a moment. I get your comments on this live video of a large March for Life protest. First on Governor Newsom, Chris.
I expect that it will be a fine visit. Like Lauren said, he is smooth. He's a very good politician. He will play to Trump. And I think Trump will play right back. I actually think it'll be a love fest today when they are together, at least.
Might be.
So we'll see how that goes.
And what about the only thing, Lauren, I'll let you kind of handle this, and then we'll go just watching the protesters, or the, I guess, demonstration protesters, whatever term you want to use in Washington in this March for Life Day. J.D. Vance earlier, this was said, he made a speech some people were saying was kind of a coming out type of weekend for J.D. Vance as vice president, in terms of getting out in front and with the president on the road and that kind of thing. What'd you make of it, if anything?
Well, look, I mean, abortion is a really complicated issue Americans have really mixed opinions on.
Yep.
And so Republicans, when they speak about it from the heart and with a mind for the other side, I think, have a very convincing message. J.D. Vance is probably one of the best messengers that the Republican Party has on abortion. But at the same time, they're shying away from it, and they don't want to be tied to a national abortion ban or a national abortion policy. And so it ends up being a tightrope for them, because a lot of people in the country feel they don't like the direction abortion policy is headed. But J.D. Vance, I think, has a long political career ahead of him. I think he has gotten a lot of attention on this issue, and it's something that he clearly cares deeply about, and I think that's good.
Okay, the vice president speaking earlier today, thousands still marching in the streets. Live pictures there from Washington, D.C. Lauren Wright, Chris Hahn, thank you both. 26